Welcome to the Enterprise Thought Leadership Podcast, where we explore the latest in enterprise trends, tech, and strategy with the top leaders shaping the future.
Hi, we welcome you to a podcast on stage with enterprise thought leaders. My name is Kanika and I'm the managing editor of Enterprise Talk, which is our enterprise technology flagship publication. We have engaging conversations with global thought leaders and industry experts, and they reach over 1.3 million business leaders worldwide. Companies today must be prepared to demonstrate responsible AI use, even if it is not yet legally required all over the world. And to discuss the importance of enterprises having a centralized AI data governance framework, which is focused on quality, lineage, and control, we have with us today Levent Ergin. He's a chief strategist for climate sustainability and artificial intelligence at Informatica's ESG data management solutions globally. GTM strategy for intelligent data management cloud for ESG sustainability. There is a mouthful. I'm not even sure if I'm correct there, but I will just go on. The topic we will be speaking to Levent about is the importance of enterprises having a centralized AI data governance framework. Welcome to the conversation, Levent. It's great to have you here today.
Thanks, Kanika. Grateful to be here.
Pleasure. So a little bit about him before we start. Levent has over 25 years of industry experience and has contributed to the Net Zero Data Public Utility, which was launched at COP28. He's also a member of DEAL, which is Data for the Environment Alliance, as a high-level expert group member of the UN Science Policy Business Forum on the Environment. Formerly, Levent served as a global head of customer data governance at Crown Jewels and data risk and controls remediation at HSBC. He also worked as a global head of reference data and MDM at Deutsche Bank for client, book, instrument, and product domains, and Group Basel III data governance lead at Royal Bank of Scotland Group, which is now called the NatWest Group. After all of that, we need to talk to you about what CIOs should be doing, Levent. So my first question is, would you like to add something about responsible use of AI in organizations before I actually ask my first question?
Yes, absolutely. So, I think AI and all of the different forms of AI is the shiny toy that every executive wants to get their hands on and deploy across their organization. But I think before anybody gets started on that journey, I think it's critical that people understand the inherent risks that are built into AI. So just to give you an example, a recent experiment was done by the Carnegie Mellon University where they created this company and they hired agent AIs, if you like, agentic AI to perform certain jobs. And what they found was that, after a while, they were only able to finish 24% of their tasks. And they started to actually not take directives and started to override those directives. So, when we look at that, and when we look at the some of the what we call godfathers or grandfathers of AI that started, neural pathways and how AI currently works today, they warn us that AI has inherent risks built in. For example, it has self-preservation as an objective. So it will lie and cheat if it knows that it's about to be superseded. So with all of those things in mind, by understanding the inherent nature of AI, I think we can all build systems that are, a lot more future-proof and responsible, if you like. And certainly the European Union with the EU AI Act is definitely spearheading that act in terms of different regulations. And we're seeing the same thing happen in the UAE, in Canada, and different parts of the world. So certainly when we talk about enterprise leaders, CIOs and technology leaders that are looking to safely adopt AI, I think it's critical to understand its inherent nature and do so with the appropriate guardrails.
That is absolutely true. And the example which you just gave was a little scary because, we've been given to believe that AI is the answer to everything humans cannot do. But if it refuses to be superseded, actually, it makes a great employee that does not want to take orders. Not the right thing to say, but so my first question is: companies leverage AI for almost all processes today. Given
Yeah.
its obvious limitations, some of which you just mentioned, what parts of the business do you think would stand to benefit the most from it? And then also, in relation to that, which parts of business processes should be a little wary of using AI or depending on it in one way or the other?
Yes, great question. So, you know, I look at my career, and I started in year 2000, and I used to work for a bank, and it was about outsourcing those back office processes to consultancies. Then it became offshoring to low cost locations. Then it became nearshoring to countries that are closer in time zone. And now we have agentic AI. And it's critical to take a risk-based approach and not look at this as a technology challenge solely on its own, but actually take a holistic view. And I think it's critical to have a methodology of thinking to identify the right processes to automate, because just because you can automate something doesn't mean that you should. And I think every company should take a risk-based approach. And to give you an example, you've got to understand the impacts of getting it wrong. For instance, if you're a bank and you're looking to automate a process that's been running without any issues in production for a very long time, such as your ATM network, which people use to take out money and buy food for their families, put food on the table. And if you were to roll out a process which was to impact that, then you're impacting a critical economic function of society. So therefore, we have to really take a risk-based approach. But that is actually relatively simple to do. And in order to do that, if you can look at low risk data, which is non-sensitive, look for processes which have high volume and frequency and low value to the human operator and high value if automated. If you can bring that lens to evaluating processes, then you can find the low hanging fruit in order to then deploy your AI agents to automate a task which is low risk, high volume, low value to the human operator, and high value once automated.
Right. So this would apply both to the maximum adoption as well as the least adoption areas in any organization. Your risk based.
Yeah, I mean, I think I take a different approach to many people in that I view this whole challenge from a risk management perspective. And I think when we look at how agentic AI is set up, you have an orchestrating agent which orchestrates the symphony. Then you have a planner agent, which breaks the overall challenge down to different pieces or different groups or different work packages. And then you have executor agents, which have very clearly defined boundaries. And if we think about it in the old Six Sigma world of supplier, input, process, output, customer, an executor agent will execute a very well defined boundary task. And therefore my suggestion and recommendation, and from what I've seen work and scale, is by starting with those clearly defined use cases which you can use as an MVP, have your executor agents deliver time and time again accurately. Then you start to scale and build the planner agents and start to widen the scope and the application of agentic AI. And the reason why I also recommend that is when we talk about banks or any large organization, you got to go through a proper impact assessment. And when you start small and show the value, you can um, um, actually get it into production, because what we're seeing is majority, like 60% of agentic AI use cases don't really make it into production. And it's because I think people are trying to bite off a massive challenge instead of, tackling it bite-sized chunks by bite-sized chunks. Yeah.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. So, AI tools are only as good as the data that they are trained on, right? So, what can companies do to get their data right for to be able to, in order to be able to use their AI to the best possible extent and make
Yeah,
it more.
great question. Yeah. So, like I said at the start, we have a lot of executives that are really keen to get going, and it's the new shiny, sexy solution. And unfortunately, without the foundations, you can't build a proper building. So those foundations for AI is data, of course, but more importantly, metadata. So data about data. So, in order for companies to safely deploy AI, you first need to do a stock take, if you like, and understand what data do you have. So that's essentially taking inventory of all of your data from a metadata perspective, so building a data catalog, and how things are typically stored in systems are not business friendly. So what you need to do is then bring the business context to it. And again, using a data management platform and leveraging AI, you can actually tag the data with the appropriate business terms. So if you have a table in a database and it's got no column headings, and you go through this process of tagging that data, or what we call intelligent glossary association, you can actually understand that column 3 is where you might be calculating your carbon emissions. So then you're able to bring business context to that data. Or, in column 2, that's where you recognize that you've got personally identifiable information, which is very important from a data privacy perspective, but even more important from a EU AI Act perspective, because once you understand what sensitive data you have across your enterprise landscape, then you can understand which AI use cases will be touching that data, needing additional controls to be able to safely deploy AI. So, unfortunately, in order to set agentic AI up for success, you cannot fast track the foundational capabilities that need to be there in order to safely deploy AI.
So this was about how would you manage your data. What about are there any other compliances apart from data privacy regulations, GDPR in the EU and the CCPA in the US and other countries? I think a lot of countries have their own data privacy regulations at this point. So do you think there are any other compliances that companies need to know to follow to have good quality data ready without breaking any rules? If there are, is the compliance being followed generally, or do you think we're lacking in that part still?
Yeah, so great question. And I'm going to sort of generalize, but I'm going to draw on the common themes which run across all of these regulations, and it's an evolving landscape. So, of course, I mentioned the EU AI Act. The Saudi AI Act is also another one which is even more on steroids compared to the EU AI Act. So, what we're seeing now are nations and countries actually even going above and beyond some of the existing regulations to ensure safe adoption of AI. And in terms of really companies complying, it comes down to having that foundational metadata in place to be able to understand exactly what data is being fed to which processes. And of course, one of those common thread items across all of these regulations is making sure that you have a human in the loop. Because the risk is, without these guardrails, if we bring if we give over our trust to these systems that have inherent flaws and self-preservation built into them, where they even lie because they don't want to be superseded, then that can lead to outcomes which could really impact humanity. And therefore, in terms of companies that are looking to comply, of course, we are seeing a slow uptake because there's a huge reliance on AI governance, and most companies don't have that as a capability, let alone something that they understand how to build today to really deploy agentic AI. And essentially, this creates this current situation that we're in, where there is this healthy friction between the senior level management that wants to drive agentic AI, and then the people on the ground that have a intimate understanding of how these systems work. And explainability is so important, as well as making sure that the data that you're feeding to train the models don't have biases built into them. So to give you an example, if we think about the medical industry, certain healing modalities have only been available to rich white people in the US, for example. So naturally, the data that you have is biased. So when you're training the models with that data, it's not going to do well with other ethnicities. And therefore, whilst everybody wants to get going on agentic AI and reap its benefits in terms of efficiency and so on, there are a lot of considerations, including compliance, because the regulators will come and poke around and ask those hard questions to companies to evidence all these controls that they need to have in order to safely deploy AI.
So you had just mentioned probably a widespread lack of a core AI data governance framework. In your opinion, how do global companies deploy this kind of a framework most efficiently? And once they do that, does it up their chances of success in the use of AI tools? But first of all, how would you define it? How do you think it looks? What does it look like? A core AI data governance framework.
Okay, yeah, great question. So I'm going to approach it from a slightly different angle, in that this is, again, a people-related challenge, because my definition of a concept might differ from your definition of that concept. And therefore, knowledge management, or what we call data literacy, and even data culture issues have been around for a long time. And chief data officers and chief data and AI officers are now changing that. So the foundational capabilities that needs to be there hasn't changed with AI. In fact, we need it more than ever. So what are those things? And companies that get this right have these capabilities in place. It's creating a central source for your knowledge management, so that everybody defines those different sets of terminologies and different taxonomies, and everybody can then understand and define concepts in the same way. Then I think it's a cultural shift in that companies usually think of data as an IT problem. But we need to shift from it's their data or my data to it's our data. So everybody needs to collectively take ownership and become a data steward, because in reality, all of the different puzzle pieces, once accurate, contributes to the whole in a huge way. And then what we also see is that a lot of multinationals or even small companies, the pattern is the same. Everybody works in silos, has their systems in silos, and therefore the data is locked up in silos. So by creating proper knowledge management around your data, and then bringing the barriers down and creating a cohesive data governance capability, then becomes the foundation for AI governance, because you've got people working cohesively together, using the same language, and also understanding data quality issues collectively, so that they can fix those problems before they give that data to models to train them. And that's essentially really the foundational capability that a lot of companies that are getting AI right are using today.
Pretty informative, even to me, and I'm a layman. So thank you so much for your inputs, Levent. It was really a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you for joining us for the Enterprise Thought Leadership Podcast. Please do follow us on social media and subscribe for more ideas and insights. Until next time.